everybody, it's Mariana with 3 Peaks Classroom. I am a grade 3 and grade 4 teacher here in Alberta, Canada, and I love to make helpful YouTube videos for other educators such as yourself. In today's video, I'm going to be continuing my classroom management series. If you missed my first 2 episodes, I talked about my top tip for behavior management, something that I wish I had learned earlier in my career. And I also released a video last week talking about the 5 behavior management strategies that I use pretty much daily in my classroom. So you can check out those videos. I will link them down below. Next week, I'm going to be sharing a video specifically for substitute teachers. Last week on my video, I had a comment left by Sandra. Thank you, Sandra. And she was wondering about tips specifically for substitute teachers, like classroom management tips. And so I will be filming that and releasing it next week for you all. And just before we dive into today's video, I do want to mention that I'm going to be referencing some resources quite a bit in my video. And so, for example, I'm going to be referencing my year plans that I talk about and my ELA schedule. If this is something that you are interested in grabbing, I will leave all of the information and all the links in the description of this video. So in case you're wondering, what is she talking about or where can I find that? The links are in the description of this video. So starting at the very top of the funnel, the biggest time management tip that I can give you is to have a super solid year plan in place. You have to know what you're going to be teaching, or at least the flow of units for the entire year, so that you can save yourself that mental capacity. I could not imagine teaching grade 3 or grade 4 or whatever without having a super solid year plan in place. It's literally like a living, breathing document that sits on my desk all the time. And as I teach things and as we've covered things, I literally cross it out so that I know that is done and this is what I have left to teach in the school year. So I'm going to be talking quite a bit about my year plans. I have a grade 3 year plan aligned with the brand new Alberta curriculum, and I have a grade 4 year plan that will be aligned with the new curriculum this coming school year because the curriculum is changing. And these will be updated as new subjects come out in the curriculum, but I'm just going to show you a little sneak peek. I have my year plans laid out at a month at a glance. So this is everything that I would teach to my students for the month of September. I see it all very clearly. And like I mentioned, it's a living document. So as I have taught something, I will cross off all of those lessons so that I know I have covered it. The reason why I love using my year plans so much is that they're very detailed, and it helps me to stay on track and on pace to make sure I give each unit the right amount of time that it needs to be taught, but also to make sure that I have covered everything, all of the outcomes by the end of the year. Too many times early in my career, I would be scrambling. I'd be staying after school, first of all, trying to lesson plan for the next day, but then I'd also try and look ahead for the rest of the week. And if I was lucky, I would have assessments planned out for the next week. That didn't happen very often, and I was always scrambling, trying to figure out what am I going to teach next, and then, oh, I need to go find resources for that unit, or I'd be staying up super late trying to create resources for certain units and topics and stuff, and it was messy, and thankfully I didn't have children at the time. So having these solid year plans in place not only saves me time as a teacher, but it also makes me a better teacher. And here's why. When a parent comes up to me and wants to know when are we going to be learning such and such in the classroom, I can tell them specifically, oh, we're going to be covering that topic in March. And first we need to make sure that we've covered these units beforehand so that we can get into that topic. That makes me sound a lot more confident, but it also makes it sound like I know what I'm doing. Also, there are some units that need a preparation beforehand. So in grade 4, we have a whole unit on waste in our world and, things to do with recycled materials. And so when I taught grade 4 for the first time, I was scrambling, honestly. I was sending an email to the parents a week before saying, hey, we're going to be working on this project and I really need your kids to bring in a ton of recycled material so that they can build this car or something like that. And that's a disadvantage to the parents and to the students because they didn't have enough time to collect recycled materials. And I would not want my students to go and buy things from the dollar store or whatever just to make a project in the classroom when they could have easily held onto recyclable materials at home. So having these detailed year plans in place has truly saved me time, but it's made me a much better teacher. So let me repeat that. Knowing how much time I'm going to devote to a specific unit in my year plan allows me to plan and prepare all of the lessons that I need, all of the materials that I might need, any games, any assessment pieces, or any projects that I might want to plan. All right, so once I have my year plans in place and then I know how much time I need for each unit and I look at like the weekly plans, that's when I sit down and write my individual lesson plans. And guys, let me tell you, I used to do this every single day after school. I would tell myself, oh, I don't want to plan too far ahead because, I might have to backtrack and I might have to race and reteach things. It was a colossal waste of time. Literally every day after school, I would sit down for 20 to 30 minutes and I would plan my entire day just for the next day, and I would gather my required materials for the next day. I was losing 30 minutes a day just for lesson planning the next day. So what I do now is so much more efficient. And here's what I do. On Mondays, after I'm done teaching the entire day, I have a pretty good idea of how our day went and how our week is going to go. You start on Monday and you see, oh, I have this celebration or we have this presenter coming in. You have an idea of what's happening that week. So sitting down on Mondays after school, I take about 30, 35, maybe 40 minutes on Mondays and I plan my entire week. I sit down and I start with one subject and I say, okay, what are we learning in language arts this week? And I will write all of my daily lesson plans for language arts right then and there. Then I move into math, then I move into science, and etc. In the business world, we have a term for this called batching, and it's a lot easier to be more efficient when you are working on something that's very similar. So instead of writing one language arts lesson plan, one math lesson plan, one social lesson plan, instead I'm looking at the entire week. And I'm going, okay, on Monday we're doing this, on Tuesday we're doing this, and it's all to do with language arts. Then I can put my language arts stuff away and I can bring out my math stuff. And I can say, okay, here's what we're doing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, yada, yada, yada. The reason why this works is because I'm devoting all that time on Mondays, and then I'm not thinking about planning for the rest of the week. I also leave a little bit of time on Fridays in case we don't get enough finished during the week. Fridays are a little bit of a lighter day. So if we're working on a project and the kids need a little bit more time, or if we really need to cover that math concept again, then on Fridays, I have allowed myself to have a little bit more time to make sure that we've covered all of the materials needed from that week. So now that my lesson plans are done on Mondays, what do I do for the rest of the week? That's when I'm assessing and grading and putting my marks into Power School or whatever. And that then will make my time much more valuable and much more efficient when it comes to report card time. As I'm uploading grades and assessments, little by little every week, then when it comes down to report card time, I already have all of these assessments embedded into my Power School. So I'm telling you, this new way of lesson planning has completely changed the way that I manage my time in the classroom. So just to reiterate my step-by-step formula for how to save time in the classroom, you're going to want to start number one with a solid year plan in place. You want to know how much time it's going to take you to teach each unit. Then number two, you're going to want to look at your month. So what are the big topics here that you're going to be teaching in that month? Can you see any sort of correlations? Can you combine units? Number three, you're also going to want to make sure that you plan specific assessments in that month. So if you're doing addition and subtraction, what is going to be your big summative assessment or your summative assessments that you're going to be putting into your report card? Will students be creating like a social studies presentation during that month? You want to slot that into your month at a glance so that you are prepared for that and you are building towards that big summative project. Then step number four, you're going to sit down and using one subject at a time, you're going to plan out your entire subject for those 3 days so that you know exactly what you're teaching Monday and then Tuesday and then Wednesday. And then you're going to move on to the next subject and the next until you have the first 3 days planned out. Once you get good at that, then you can push it a little further. And trust me, it will save you some time. Okay, and before I wrap up this episode, I do want to share with you two teeny tiny little tips. So we're talking about the bottom of the funnel here. Two little teeny tiny tips that I can't imagine teaching without because they do save me so much time in the classroom. The number one tip that I have for you in your classroom is timers. You have to have timers in your classroom. I use a timer online called Online Stopwatch, and it's just a visual timer. You can pick different things like a bomb or, just a clock, whatever, or an hourglass. I use those visual timers because it's very visual for students to see the clock. And it's also huge on my smartboard, but it's also really easy for the kids to go and reset the timer for me if they need to. I've also seen teachers use physical timers like, hourglasses or things like that, or a digital like a kitchen timer that just sticks to their whiteboard. That's fine too. I like using the big visual one though, because then if we're working in daily 5 stations, the kids can see physically how much time they have left in their station. So number 1 time tip for managing your time in the classroom is timers. And my second tip that I cannot imagine living without, I actually learned from a fellow teacher at my school, is to use the alarm feature on your phone. And bonus, if you have an Apple Watch or a smartwatch that connects to your smartphone. I can't tell you how many times I have forgotten supervision or forgotten music class or whatever until I learned to set an alarm on my phone. So I set an alarm 2 minutes before I have to be somewhere. So 2 minutes before supervision, 2 minutes before music, whatever. And the alarm goes off on my cell phone, and I dedicate a specific ringtone so the kids know that means something in the classroom. And it clues everybody in. Oh my gosh, we have to be in music in 2 minutes. Quick, everybody, pause what you're doing. Let's go line up at the door. And like a sub tip under that tip number 2 for alarms, Apple Watch has this cool feature called Breathe. Once a day, you can schedule it, you can program it to remind you to just stop and breathe for a second. I can't tell you how many times it's dinged me in class to remember to breathe, to take a moment to breathe. And I stopped the lesson right then and there. And I'd say, oh, my friends, my watch is reminding me to breathe. Let's practice our deep breaths for a little bit. I can't tell you how much that helps with classroom management as well. Just taking a collective moment to pause and breathe deeply as a class, it just instantly calms everybody down. I highly recommend that. Even if you don't have an Apple Watch, just set an alarm on your phone at like a random time during the day where you're with your students and just see the reaction out of the kids. Everybody's going to take a deep breath together and everybody's just going to calm down. There you go. Those are my time management tips that I use in the classroom, both from the big picture, so the long range plans, the year plans, all the way down to very basic tips like timers and alarms on your phone. But those are the things that save me a bunch of time in the classroom, and it saves me a bunch of time at home as well, because I'm not bringing work home with me. I'm not bringing lesson planning or marking with me. I leave it all at work. And when I come home, I am present with my family. So I hope you guys enjoyed watching this episode. Please consider subscribing if you found this episode interesting. I hope you're having a great day, and I will see you guys in next week's episode where I talk about those substitute teacher classroom management tips. Bye.